Yay! Here we are.
Yay!
Welcome, everybody. This is our second episode of Social Justice from 6 Feet Apart with Kelsey and Dan.
So much fun.
Yay! We're going to introduce ourselves again because maybe some folks are watching who did not watch our first episode and don't know who we are. So I'm Kelsey. My pronouns are she and her, and I work in student services. And I'm coming to you from a room in my apartment in Middletown.
Hey everyone, my name is Dan. My pronouns are he, him, his. I also work in student services with Kelsey, and I am coming at you from my hometown in Tewksbury, Massachusetts.
Woohoo! Hi, Alexis. Nice to see you. Thanks for being here.
There's people.
Yay!
I had the private chat up, not the live comments. Hi, Alexis. Thanks for joining us.
So, we're going to get started. I promise I can play a little bit better than that, but it's really awkward to try to get it in the video screen. Anyway.
You can do some practice, and we can do like a live, like, acoustic song one day or something.
Definitely. If somebody has a good social justice song that can be played on ukulele, send it our way, and I will.
That's a sentence.
Yes, I will try to learn how to play it. So, Dan, what are we doing today?
Yes. Well, we're starting off with a new segment that me and Kelsey thought would be fun to kind of start every session off. We're going to see how it goes. We're going to be trying some new different things as we move forward to see what's fun and engaging for everyone. So what I have done is, hi, Alyssa, thanks for joining. What I have done is that I have found some positive stories or headlines. And I thought that I could share a few of those here. We could talk about them if we want, kind of just like focus on a few positives that we've seen in the last week or so in the news. So I thought that would be kind of a good place for us to start.
I love it.
Beautiful. The first one, New York City opened a special center for kids, for people who are healthcare workers or other essential employees, so that those workers can go to work, but then they also have a place for their kids to go, and like it's a safe space for them.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's really nice that New York is doing so much for their people kind of during all of this. It's nice too that with the school shutting down and like the nurses and healthcare workers and other essential employees, it's good for them to have like a backup, knowing like, okay, if something else is closed or if my other like daycare is closed, or even if I don't have one and I need my kids to go somewhere, it's nice that they're offering that for the essential personnel.
Yeah. Got to keep those healthcare workers able to keep doing their jobs. Exactly. That's awesome.
They're the front lines.
Good job, New York.
Woo! So another fun one that I found is Jane Goodall celebrated her 86th birthday the other day. So she's a wonderful woman. We love her for all the things.
She's so cool. I love her.
Especially with like her chimpanzee work and all that stuff. But she has a new documentary coming out called The Hope. And she talks about her work that she's done and how it hasn't just been like for the chimpanzees, and how she's kind of impacted our generation and other generations with the work that she's done and the positivity that she hopes to like create and cultivate with the work, and how the next generation is already like taking those steps. So I watched the little trailer for it and it seemed pretty interesting.
Nice. Yeah, she seems like an amazing woman. If folks have not ever seen like an interview or a video clip, or maybe they should go find the trailer for this documentary that Dan's talking about. If you've never seen Jane Goodall talk about chimpanzees, just go do that. Make that a part of your day today, because she seems like a lovely woman and she loves chimpanzees so much. And she has taught us so much stuff. Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah, she's wonderful. So I'm excited for that.
And happy birthday, Jane.
Right? I know. Another great one that I saw on Twitter and then also in the news, after 13 years, giant pandas in a zoo have finally mated thanks to the closures at the zoo.
Oh my gosh.
Since there's been no people, and I guess the people were like agitating them or like stressing them out.
Yeah.
So after 13 years of just like not mating, these two giant pandas finally mated, and they're going to have at least one baby panda. I'm not sure how panda reproduction works.
Sure.
To be quite honest. But I just think that's so wholesome.
They just needed a little bit of privacy.
Right?
Who knew?
Well, when there's people in your day-to-day life, you need to put them aside sometimes. Take the space.
Yep.
So we're happy for those giant pandas.
Yeah, good for you guys.
Another one is in England. A family tried to cheer up their neighborhood by spending 6 hours outside, and they had a brick home, and they colored each of the bricks a different chalk color. So
Aw.
it's their whole entire house, and they're the houses that are like lined up one right next to each other. And you can see it's like the whole brick row, and then the one house is just all like rainbow with chalk.
Oh, that's
And it
cool.
seemed like, yeah, it seemed like it was two kids, their mom and their dad. And the pictures
Nice.
are really cute. It looks really cool.
I live in a brick home, so maybe that is how I
Ooh.
should be spending my Easter weekend.
Honestly, yeah, because like it looks like they're in Easter dresses. The two kids
Yeah,
are, and there's a wall in front of the home too. So there's like a little front yard, and that's also chalk. And the kids are like standing on the wall taking a picture together. It's super cute.
cool. Oh, that's great. Yeah, what a good activity. Did they even get up like up high?
The dad was on a ladder in the picture,
Ugh,
so he was. They went top to down, their whole entire width. It's
that's
pretty cool.
awesome. I feel like if there's, I don't know if we will have any of like our students who have kids or parents like watching this, but I feel like that's a great way to keep your kids occupied for maybe a whole day.
Yeah, or even outside on the pavement, or like chalking. If you have any extra chalk, I feel like that would
Yeah.
be fun. Yeah,
Alexis wants to know, can we do that to McAuliffe? I mean, it's chalk. Washes
it
off
is
with water.
chalk. I would say don't do it without permission, but that would make McAuliffe look really cool. You're
It
not
would.
wrong.
Yeah.
Another one that I found, positive headline, this is the last one that I have, was that a college student has been sewing and making face masks for the hard of hearing and hearing impaired community
Oh, I
and for
saw
the deaf
something about
community.
that.
Yeah.
So cool.
So she's been making face masks which don't cover the mouth so that people who are hard of hearing, deaf, or hearing impaired who
Yeah.
rely on lip reading, they can still do that. But it's
Yep.
still protective enough that the germs don't go out or anything. So I thought that was really cool that
That is really
some
cool.
communities who rely on different forms of just like communicating, that there are people also thinking about them during these times.
Yeah. That's awesome. Oh, thanks for finding all those, Dan. That was
Of course.
such a lovely way for us to get started.
Yeah.
So has anything positive happened to you in the last week since we did our last episode?
Yeah, I've actually been taking my dog for a lot of walks around like the neighborhood and like surrounding area, and there's been some trails that I haven't like gone on in my hometown in a while. So I've
Mm-hmm.
been trying to socially distance, of course. I've been trying to go out on those and taking her for a walk. We have some woods in our backyard, and I've even gone out there. She's good enough in our backyard without a leash, so we can just go out and we just like walk around for a bit. So I've been spending a lot of time outside, and I feel like that's just been like making my mood so much more like positive. So I feel like that's
Cool.
been something that this has been really helpful for, just like taking some me time, going outside more, and like getting fresh air.
Yeah.
Hmm. Has anything
Um,
positive happened to you, Kelsey?
yes, I discovered a new recipe for cinnamon rolls that were
Ooh,
amazing. It came from my I was video chatting with my brother and his girlfriend over the weekend, and they were talking about how they were going to have brunch, and his girlfriend was going to make cinnamon rolls. And I was like, "Oh my god, I haven't made cinnamon rolls in so long." I have made them before, but I ended up using Paula Deen's recipe, celebrity chef Paula Deen. It was
love
very
her.
easy, and they were so light and fluffy. They're so good. So
That's
I
awesome.
actually still have some. I will probably, when we're done with this, go have cinnamon roll. Um, and yeah, it was really easy and delicious, and I made them on Sunday, so that was like a nice Sunday morning treat and activity.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, it was good. So, Dan, do you want to also talk about sort of what we're going to do with this segment
Yes,
today?
of course. So this next segment that we're gonna hop into is I found some different hot topics. So we're gonna be talking about those and kind of sharing our views and opinions. And we're hoping that as this continues, we'll have a range of different ones. We'll have a few that are like more on the fun side. We'll have some that might be kind of like the current climate of the world, kind of just chatting about that. So we have a few different hot topics that me and Kelsey are going to chat about.
Mm-hmm.
The first one, and I witnessed this last night, is the pink supermoon that happened last night.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I did not see this last night. I did not go outside.
Well, Kelsey, I am not going to lie to you. You did not miss much.
Oh,
It seemed
really?
like, yeah, I mean, like, it. So the title is Pink Supermoon, right?
Uh-huh.
My friend told me about it, so I was very excited. because I was like, ooh, the moon's gonna be pink. I go outside, it looks like a regular full moon. Like, yes, it was like a nice big like full moon,
Yeah.
but like wasn't pink. And then I read an article today about it that said it was only going to be pink in front of like a cloud or like some smog or something, and it was cloudy where I was last night. Still didn't look pink. So,
Ah.
oh, Alexa says it's another name for a new moon. See, I've learned something new now.
It is a bummer to be expecting something to be pink and then it's not pink.
Especially because like pink is a color in nature you never see.
Right.
Like, except for like flowers, things like that. But like,
Yeah.
how cool would that be if like the sun turned pink one
Yeah.
day, and someone was like, "Oh, it's Pink Sunday."
You know what I did here, and I'm gonna I think try to watch for it tomorrow night. I also heard that last night where I don't know if this is very specific to my location, which is in Middletown, Connecticut, or if you were anywhere in Connecticut or anywhere in New England that you'd be able to see this. But I heard that last night the International Space Station was visible, and it like you can see it sort of move across the sky. I missed it last night by about 5 minutes because it is a very specific window. But you can go online and look up like when am I going to be able to see the International Space Station? I did see it a few years ago. I had a roommate who one night was like, "Hey, the space station is going by," and we went outside and looked at it. But I believe we're going to be able to see it again tomorrow night, Thursday night. So I'll look into that and I will report back.
That is interesting.
Because I've heard that I don't know how often it comes around, but I remember a few years ago it was really cool. Like it didn't just look like a star. You could tell it was like something else.
Okay.
Yeah. So another cool thing in the sky.
Mm-hmm. Keep an eye out. Eye in the sky.
Yes.
Do you have anything else you want to say about this pink supermoon, Kelsey?
Just, let's market things accurately. That's what I have to say about that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So the next hot topic that we found is Lady Gaga has announced a global benefit concert for coronavirus relief, which I think is really, really cool. She has such a large platform that she does stand on after like all her music, being in like A Star Is Born, like her theater and her like TV stuff. I think like she has such a like large reach, and I think that it's so important that she's doing something like this, and other celebrities and like people with a lot of money are helping during this time because they can. And it looks like
gonna raise a ton of money. I'm sure she probably already has.
Yeah, it looks like she's been working with Global Citizen for relief efforts, and they've already raised like $35 million is what I have.
That's awesome.
And that's from 2 days ago, so I'm not sure. It's probably more, but yeah, I think it's really important for people who can to be helping during this time and kind of not just thinking about the self, but kind of the world and others around them. And always like, of course, like, yes, social distancing is important in doing that and making sure that you're being safe, but also trying to kind of take this time to think about other things you can be doing maybe to help other people.
Yeah, that's great.
That's great. So
yeah, love that music.
And I know another one that me and Kelsey had already talked a little bit about, but we thought was very interesting, so we kind of wanted to bring it on here and chat a little more about it, is how do we feel about states holding their elections amid the whole COVID-19 epidemic?
Yeah, there has been a lot of news about this lately, specifically in Wisconsin, because Wisconsin had a primary election. It was either yesterday or it's today. And there was a lot of debate leading up to it about whether or not that should still be happening, because it's not super safe for folks to be like going and waiting in line or going into a polling place. I think in Wisconsin, a lot of the polling locations actually closed because people didn't feel comfortable like going in. People that would normally be there to work to like help people with voting didn't really feel comfortable going in to vote. And in Connecticut, they delayed our primary. So I don't know the exact date. I know it's in April typically, and it got pushed back a little bit. So obviously that's one thing that states are doing. Massachusetts had their primary already, right? Before this all kind of started. What do you think, Dan?
I think, well, you brought up a really good point of like different polling places closing because people didn't feel comfortable going to work. I didn't even think of that when we talked about it a little earlier. But like that, I feel like is also maybe like a form of voter suppression almost,
Mm-hmm.
because like without all these different places open, people have to go to specific areas that aren't in their normal reach or where they usually go. So if people weren't informed about that until the day
Right.
of, they might not be able to make it work. Or if they don't have a car or transportation, they might not be able to go to those that are farther away. And I also just think it's like very unsafe in
Mm-hmm.
general to encourage people to gather to vote when we're all supposed to be not gathering. And
Yeah.
I understand the importance of voting. Like I think that's super super important and should still be happening. But it just, to me personally, it doesn't make any sense to like be
Yeah.
gathering and congregating in large lines like that or in areas to vote. And I get like we need to vote. I just don't think now's the time.
Yeah. And I know one of the alternatives that people have proposed is to vote by mail. Obviously, we already have, there are states where you can vote by mail. There's absentee ballots are typically done through the mail, maybe even electronically now in some places. So I know some folks had said, like, well, maybe a better solution here is to just make this a full, like, everyone's going to mail in their votes instead of going to a polling place. And it seems like in Wisconsin, they just weren't really allowed to do that, or they decided to go ahead with the in-person voting anyway. And I'm sure that affected the turnout. I'm sure that meant some people put themselves in a risky situation because they felt really compelled. I know for lots of people in the United States, like I can think of some people in my own family for whom voting is like a really important act, and like they would never miss voting, so they'd probably go,
Absolutely.
even if it wasn't safe. So yeah, I think it seems to me like Wisconsin maybe did not handle this the right way, and I hope other states that have primaries coming up where maybe they haven't made a decision to push it back yet, that they decide to do that. It's hard to know when this is all going to be over and when we can sort of go back to normal, but I think in the meantime we just got to be keeping each other safe and providing people with solutions where they can be safe and still participate in the things that they want to participate in. So
Exactly. Because you
yeah.
also brought up another good point of people like really holding this value of voting so strongly to them,
Mm-hmm.
because we have fought so hard to get so many different people to
Yeah.
vote. Like women were just able to vote like I think it was like 70 or 80 years ago now. Like that's when it
Mm-hmm.
first started. So it hasn't even been that long. And I just think it's so important for everyone to be able to vote and like have their voices heard. And during this time, it's just like I feel like A, you're not going to be able to get that, and B, it's not safe for people to be doing that.
Yeah. Ugh. Dan, hot topics. Excellent job.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much
Of course. I hope
for
everyone
keeping us
enjoyed.
informed.
Yes, got to stay up to date on a few different things, a few different areas, some fun stuff, some
Yeah.
stuff that's a little more serious. Lady Gaga, you know.
So we are going to get into what is actually like our main topic for this week. Last week we talked about identity. This week we are talking about
The
the
census.
census.
Woo-hoo.
Woohoo! You guys can look forward to these little construction paper signs from me every week. That is about as crafty as I can get over here.
Have a
So
high production.
yes, we are, got tons of budget money going into making these live streams here. Just kidding, they're free. So do we want to start with, we want to sort of talk about what the census is and why it's important, and how the census is a social justice issue, more than it's just, a thing that we do every 10 years. Dan, you had found a really cool video, a commercial
Yes.
that I did not look up before we started this.
Ooh.
So,
I also have it on the tab.
okay,
Let me see if I
cool.
can find it quickly.
All right. Yeah, if you send that to me, then I'll pull it up. So for folks who are watching, we are going to have a question later in, you may or may not know the answer to this, but we are going to have a question later in our live stream today where we want to hear from folks, like, has your family or household completed the census form that you should have gotten in the mail? I know we still have some folks who are not not back in their regular household. Like we have some folks who are still living on campus. We have some folks who maybe are staying with people in New Haven because they couldn't get back home yet. So you might not know the answer to that, but that's one of the things we're going to be asking you all in a little bit. All right, we've got this video up. So this is like a 30-second commercial, really, or like a public service announcement about the census. So I'm going to do a little screen share situation here in a second, and then we'll watch it and we'll kind of talk about what we think. Hopefully this audio goes okay through everybody's screens. All right. So there's our little 30-second version of what the census is. So let's talk about that a little bit. Dan, what kind of jumps out at you about this video that we just watched?
Yeah.
Ooh, sorry. Alexis is telling me the audio is bad.
Ooh. Maybe we can put the
We'll put the link
in the chat.
Yes. Go for it. Can you do that for me, Dan?
Yes, of course. I think so.
Oh, wait. I got it.
I don't know how to answer people on chat here.
That's all right. I got it.
We're learning as we go.
We are figuring it out. Yeah, so what did you think about the video we just watched?
Yeah, I thought it was really cool how it, for me at least, I feel like it represented a good chunk of America in like just a brief 30 seconds, and also explained what the census is to like its basic and its bare bones. I know for me, some of the clips and videos that popped up were like some of the cultural celebrations. I know towards the end, it looked like there was like a marching band going and kind of dancing. There's also, it looked like a paper dragon or some sort of large like, float-like structure. And I just think that that's really cool because for me, I never really thought about how the census can have such an impact on so many different things, even like programs in different parts of the country or just in different states. And I also like that it touches upon like the healthcare system and how both young and old, this is going to affect them. And I feel like it showed a lot of different clips of different parts of America, not just the typical when people think America, like this is what I think of.
Yeah, I think the video gives us a good entry point into some other stuff that we wanted to talk about today, because it references, I know we folks who are watching this couldn't hear it, but it talks about how the census is what is used to determine where a lot of government money gets spent. So just as a super basic overview of like what a census is, every 10 years in the United States, and we do this on the new decade years. So 2020, we'll do it again in 2030, 2040. The government, the Census Bureau, which is part of the government, tries to count every single person who is living in the United States. That's what a census means. And they do that they send something in the mail. This year you can actually do the form online. It said in the ad that you could also do it over the phone, which I didn't know. And it just tries to get a count of who is living in every household in the United States. It also measures some stuff that is useful for different departments of the government or like different offices of the government that provide funding for things like housing or education, programs for elderly folks, programs for children, because it says we learn at the end of the census, oh, here's how many people we have in the US that are like over the age of 75 and might benefit from programs, or who are under the age of 4, and maybe, we need like preschool and daycare programs and things like that. And it determines based on where, because it's all connected to like where people are living. So, you know, at the end it'll say, oh, in Connecticut we have this many people living here. So then when the Department of Education is deciding how much money is Connecticut going to get from the federal government to support education, they're going to look at how many people are living there and how many people are going to school there. So it's really, really important. It's way bigger than just filling out a form or like, you know, completing what might feel sort of like an annoying task. Yeah, this is the most that I've ever learned about the census. I know I've been alive for several censuses, but didn't really know very much until we started getting ready for this episode. So, yeah.
Yeah, I thought one of the really interesting things too was as me and Kelsey were like kind of doing our research for this, and we meet up to chat about these before we do them. We both like had learned new things by just like reading different articles and kind of learning about the census. So I also think that that kind of goes to show too that sometimes some of the most important things we don't really know too much about because you kind of have to go out and seek that information
Yeah.
yourself. So even if you don't know what the census is, and after this video you start to have some questions, you can always go to their website. You can always kind of read different articles on what the census does. We're hopefully kind of trying to give you like a snapshot of what the census is, how it's important, and how it kind of ties into social justice. But you can always learn more about it after this, and you can kind of take that step to put some more information in your head and kind of understand more fully what the census really does.
Yeah. So Dan, you mentioned that we were talking about like how the census is connected to social justice. So do you want to say a little more about that?
Yeah, of course. So you mentioned kind of getting the count of everyone and where they're living and the different people that are living in those areas. And I think for social justice, it's so important for us to have a fair and complete count of everyone that's in the area because it's so crucial for social justice to know who is in that area, what kind of people live there, how many people live there, what areas are surrounding it. And all that information can come from the census. And it's also very helpful for the government to have. And I understand some people don't believe that the government and social justice can like coexist. Sometimes there's some strains between them, but it's really important for us to do this because it can help those people in our government that are trying to help people take that better step forward. This information is really going to help them and support their backs and what they're saying. And I think it's going to be really important. The census also should be completed because so many people fought for us to be able to have the right to vote, which I know we talked a little bit earlier. But I just think it's really important for us to remember, like, yes, we have that choice right now, but we're lucky to have that choice because not everyone has that choice or is able to have their voices heard in their government. So I just think it's really important for us to kind of take that step back and remember that we're helping not only ourselves, but the people who fought for us to get where we are. And I understand that some people might be scared or nervous because of things that have happened with the government, like you said. But I just think it's really important for all of us to be able to be counted and to be heard because that's how we're going to be able to take those next steps forward in a positive direction.
And this is all connected to voting and to representation in government because besides the census determining how much money certain states or certain areas might get for things like housing and education and healthcare and stuff like that, the census also determines how many electoral votes states get. So electoral votes are based on population. So if in the last 10 years, maybe a ton of people moved to Texas and a lot of people left California, then maybe Texas would end up with more electoral votes and California would get a little bit less or something like that. So we want the we all have probably opinions about how well the Electoral College works. But if we're going to have it, I think we want it to reflect accurately the population that's living in that state. And the census also determines how many representatives a state gets in the House of Representatives. So in Congress, again, there might be some fluctuations every 10 years of now there's a huge population in this one state and they didn't have very many representatives. So now we're going to add some representatives and remove some representatives from some other states. So yeah, it's really important for thinking about who is representing us in the government.
Yeah, and Alexis also put in the comments too that it helps with state reps.
Yeah, so from federal government all the way down to like our local governments, the census really matters.
It really makes an impact on so many different communities, not just like your own local one, but like your regional one, your statewide one, and then also our whole country. So it's impacting so many different things. And then if you think about it, those libraries in those areas, those how many like malls are being built. Like it really affects everything because that's how everyone gets their numbers. So
Mm-hmm.
even it's not just government, it's the day-to-day lives, it's those community impacts that we saw, like those cultural events and those education pieces that aren't just in the classroom.
Yeah. So for folks who might be wondering, okay, this is what the census is. What am I supposed to do about it? If you are currently at the home that you have lived in for however long, probably your family got something in the mail or someone in your household got something in the mail with a form to fill out that then you can mail back. So you could do that. You can fill out the form. I filled mine out last week. It was very straightforward. There's also a code in the form if you'd rather fill it out online. So it'll give you like the website and then a code that you put in, and then you can fill out the same exact form online, so even easier. And apparently you can do it by phone. I don't know how you do that, but I imagine on the form there's something about a phone number that you could call and fill out the census there. This is really important. So if people have not filled out, like if a particular household has not done their census by June, people are going to start coming around and knocking on people's doors because the census is so important that we actually hire people to be who are called census workers that go out to neighborhoods and they knock on doors and they just try to get people to fill it out, or they have people answer the questions right there, like standing on their doorstep. Obviously, with the way things are going in the world right now, like we don't really want people to have to go out and knock on people's doors. So as much as possible, everybody should try to get their family or someone in their house to do the census form before June so that we can get as many people in as possible and we don't have to run the risk of folks like walking around not being able to social distance as much as they want to. So yeah. Dan, anything else about, oh, I forgot to say, if you are still living on Albertus's campus, because there is typically a discussion about like, well, college students, if things were sort of normal right now, all of our college students who live on campus would be living on campus right now. And the census is all about keeping track of where people are living, getting a count, but also like where they live. So if you are still a student who is living on Albertus's campus, stay tuned. ResLife will probably be coming out with some information about how you can complete the census for yourself, since that's where you're currently living. For folks who have gone home or who always live at home, who don't live on campus, you fill it out just the way you would like with the people in your household. But for people on campus, it's a little bit different. Does anybody have any questions about the census? We have a few folks watching. Dan and I can try to answer them. We're not experts, but we'll give it a shot.
I think something fun too for this is like if you have any friends. Well, I'm sure everyone has friends, so if you do, maybe like shooting like 2 or 3 friends a text and be like, "Hey, have you filled out your census?" Or like, "Has your family filled out your census?" I know there's been such a huge push in the last few years for like people to register to vote. I think it would be pretty cool if we were able to kind of see that with the census as well, since the census only comes around at the top of every new decade, like as we talked about. So I think that's pretty important for us to really push that as much as we do voting, because it's pretty impactful in the long run.
Yeah. We will probably talk about voting again in a later episode as we get closer to either the 2020 election or maybe the Connecticut primary. But yeah, we should think about it as just as important as voting. Counting every person really matters.
Absolutely.
All right. I'm going to put up our poll question here. So for anybody who's watching, we are really curious if your family or household, sorry, it's hard to, let me make this full screen, has filled out the census yet. So the way that you respond to this is you can either go to this website up at the top, pollev.com, and then enter, I guess that's my username for this account, or you can text this to this number, and that gets you in, and then you respond with another text of A, B, or C for has your family or household filled out the census yet? Yes, no, or you're not sure. We'll keep this up here for a little bit, give people some time to answer. Dan, do you know if your household has completed the census yet?
That is a great question. I am not sure if my household has completed the census yet, because I know that my dad and his fiance, they travel back and forth from Massachusetts to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So I am currently at home with my older brother, but I also don't have a phone. So when we were like learning about the census and like me and Kelsey were doing some research, I was like, I should check to see if like I've done mine. So I haven't been able to get in touch with my dad yet to make sure. But if
Mm-hmm.
not, I'm gonna be on him. I'm gonna be on everyone I know. Fill
There
out
you
that
go.
census.
Great.
Okay, so someone's filled out the
So we,
census.
yeah, we've got a yes. That's awesome. Yeah, ours came in the mail, and I was actually surprised. There was a lot of discussion this year about different questions that might be on the census. In particular, there was a lot of discussion around a question about citizenship that was causing a lot of controversy because I think this sort of goes to what you were saying earlier, Dan, about people maybe feeling not really trusting the government or feeling nervous about answering questions that then the government is going to have the answer to. And one of the debates was, well, if we include a question about citizenship for then folks who aren't citizens, who are undocumented and living in the United States, does that mean that they're not going to want to fill out the census? Because I think that could make people understandably really nervous that there might be consequences to saying, no, I'm not a citizen, but I'm living in the U.S. But when I was looking through the census the form that we got at my house, there wasn't a question like that on there. So I think that's a good thing. And it was really easy to fill out.
Yeah, and I'm also sure that during this time there's some like rumors or myths or just some like preconceived notions about this, like the census floating around. So I think that's also really important to like, make sure
Yeah.
you're checking reputable sources, kind of just keeping yourself as informed as possible. Because like we talked about a little earlier, this is one of those things like you don't really ever learn too much about unless you
Yeah.
go out and seek that information, or you're like a government major, or your family is very into politics or things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
I know, like for me personally, I didn't really know too much about the census or what it does until me and Kelsey started doing some of this research. So it's also okay kind of not to know these things because we're all just here to learn and kind of figure things out. So
Yeah. All right. So it looks like most of the people who are responding are saying yes, their household has done the census, and we've got some folks who are not sure. That's great. So whenever you're watching this, if you're watching our recording, that's our call to action for you all to make sure you get the census done or someone gets it done.
yeah, absolutely. So important.
All right. So I think we've arrived at our sort of last segment here. So last week when we recorded, we ended with a segment called Music Giving Us Life, which I have ripped off from the Code Switch podcast. I recommend that podcast very highly. And the music that I have been listening to a lot this week it's not super new, but it is her newest album. So I really love Sarah Bareilles. I know she was like on the radio a lot when I was in middle school, high school. I don't know. How old am I? With her, that song Love Song that came out, she sort of got really big with that one. But her newest album is called Amidst the Chaos. And it is so good. She is so great. And she's got a couple of really good music videos for, one of her first songs is called Fire. Check out the music video for that. So I just can't stop listening to that album this week. That's my recommendation.
Yeah. Sarah Bareilles is wonderful.
Oh, she's great.
Yeah.
I'd just love to have dinner with her.
I feel like she'd be so
Seems
fun.
like a great person. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like she'd be a lot of fun to like just sit down with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, some music that's been giving me life recently is I've been on YouTube a lot and kind of just listening to music and letting things like kind of autoplay on there as I'm doing work or I'm doing like research for this.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the songs, I'm a big musical theater fan and lover, but I also like I've never fully listened through Hamilton, like I've never fully listened through like Dear Evan Hansen.
Dan, I can't believe
know.
you just admitted out loud that you haven't listened to Hamilton on a live stream. You were gonna get dragged.
I know. Well,
Bring it on, people. He deserves it.
Drag me through the mud. But my thing is like I've listened to some of them, like Angelica, Eliza, like that stuff. And
Yep.
the
Yep.
music's good. I just like have never personally listened to all of it. So like
All right.
I understand I can't really call myself like a musical theater
We'll
lover if
talk
I
about
haven't.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll take that discussion offline. But for me, a few different Dear Evan Hansen songs have been kind of like
Mm,
popping up on my YouTube. And one that I found was it's a song called For Forever. And it's just like a really like kind of fun. The show's kind of sad, I think, from what I've
mhm.
like read and heard. But like this song is kind of like uplifting. It's talking about like a friendship and things like that. And it's I found a version with like four different of the Evan Hansons from like one from Broadway, one from the West End, one from like the touring company, and like another one.
Cool.
And the four of them sing it together. But like I am the biggest fan of like amazing harmonies or just like cool
Yeah.
things that voices can do together, and they have some like really really cool stuff that they do with like the harmonies and just their voices and the notes that they hit. So like for me, just like hearing that really energizes me. I love like I don't know what it is, but harmonies and melodies, things like that. Just like
Mm.
I personally like I just like geek out over. So I've loved listening to that. I've just been like kind of having that on repeat the last few days, just because that's a song I could put on and be like, ooh, this is great.
Cool. All right. I'm going to look that one up.
Good.
All right. And then we wanted to end our, Dan had noticed that this sort of conversation has been happening on social media about who is a celebrity that if you had to be quarantined with, who would you pick? Um, do you have your answer?
I do have my answer.
Do you want to go first?
I would love to go first because I would love to talk about this. But I have like a celebrity like love. It's not even a crush. It's just like my heart is so full for this person. It's Anna Kendrick. She is just
Yeah.
such a phenomenal human being. She's so funny. I loved her book Scrappy Little Nobody. I'm a huge, huge fan of like all the Pitch Perfect movies and Into the Woods that she was in, and just like a bunch of her work. And I think being like in quarantine with her would just be so fun because
Yeah.
not only could we sing and harmonize like I just talked about, like all the Pitch Perfect songs, I know them all by heart. I know some of the dance to I Saw the Sign, like all that stuff from Pitch Perfect, like obsessed with it. So she'd probably
Great.
get really annoyed with me, but I would love it. And she's so funny.
I think she'd love you. I don't think you need to
Oh,
worry about her being annoyed. I think she'd love you.
okay,
That's a
everyone,
great pick.
get
Yeah.
Anna Kendrick to come hang out with me.
Okay, we're putting
That's
it
your
out into
other
the
call to
universe. If
action.
anybody has a connection out there. So my celebrity that I would not mind being quarantined with is this has probably been like the highlight of my spending lots of time at home experience for the last few weeks is my girlfriend and I have been watching Schitt's Creek on Netflix. We're almost done with the last season that is on Netflix. I know there's one more season in the series that's like airing. I think it just aired last night, its final episode. And I just think Dan Levy is like the funniest person alive. So I'm sure he's a very busy man. I'm sure he does not frequent Connecticut very often, but you know, if he was passing through, I'd invite him over for dinner and then he can hang out as long as he wants. I just think he seems so funny. And if anybody has not watched Schitt's Creek yet, that's my official Netflix TV show recommendation. His facial expressions, he's got one of those really expressive faces. I find myself like laughing out loud every time he says something. So that's my pick. And as a person, he seems like really cool. Just, you know, aside from his the character he plays on this show.
I've had so many people suggest Schitt's Creek to me, so I
Yeah.
feel like that's kind of on my list. Especially I saw it was trending on social media last night because
Yeah.
I think the final episode came out.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so that's something I feel like I need to watch because it seems funny. And there was this video clip on Twitter, I think, from one of the episodes, and I thought it was hilarious. So I feel like I need to just like dive in at this point.
Yeah. All right. You got a few things on your list. I feel like
I
that.
know. I also have Tiger King. I still haven't
Oh
watched
my gosh. Yeah. Neither Dan nor I have watched Tiger King yet, but we'll probably watch it and talk about it in a later episode because I think there's a lot to unpack there.
You're not wrong.
Social justice related. Somehow, maybe we'll get there. We'll get there.
Like, we need to have something to connect, right? Like,
That's
we
right.
start off with Tiger King, and then we move on to social justice. It's a perfect
Totally. All right. So thank you folks for tuning in. Next week we will be back to our regular schedule. We will be having this live stream on Thursday, not Wednesday, Thursday next week at 3 p.m. It will also be recorded, so you'll be able to look it up on YouTube. We'll promote it so that folks can find it on our social media. We don't know what our topic is for next week yet, but it'll be something great. If anybody has topics you'd like to see Dan or I cover, just let one of us know.
Put it in the comments of the YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Email us.
Yeah. Cool. And thanks for tuning in. We hope
Yeah, we
everybody
appreciate
is staying healthy and feeling good out there.
We're thinking of you.
All right. Bye, everybody.
See ya.